roofers, this is Richard coming to you live from iRoofing. And today I wanted to show you the entire process of going from a measurement to an estimate to a simulator photo, all within one address right in the iRoofing application. Now I happened to get a call because, we've got a new series coming out that's a continuation on Breaking Bad. So I happened to get a call from a Walter White, and he wanted an estimate done of his house that happens to be in New Mexico. So what I want to show you first is, you'll see right on my screen here of my iPad, I actually have a roof proposal for Walter White. And I have two different roof proposals. I have one that he can sign, which is a printer-friendly roof proposal. You can see this here. It's got a measurement of the house. It's got all the specifications. He's obviously getting Timberline HD on that house. And it gives our payment schedule, terms and conditions, and Walter can actually sign it right there. And then I also have one that you can actually email to Walter. That'll give him a bit more details if you want. You'll see we've got all the information. We've got pretty pictures of all the materials. We've got a picture of the house. And this is what's called our simulator, and we're going to get into that in a minute, but we can actually show Walter what his house is going to look like before we do the job. Instead of carrying a catalog or anything like that, we can show Walter what his house is going to look like, and we can get all kinds of detailed measurements and everything. But let's go ahead and let's start back at the beginning. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using a piece of software, which is our software called iRoofing, and that's going to allow us to go in and actually measure this house, make an estimate, and make a simulator photo as well. So right now we're in iRoofing, and you'll see there's three little bubbles right there on the screen. One says Measure Your Roof, Catalogs, and Roof Simulator. We're going to start with the Measure Your Roof function. So if we hit that little black circle that says Measure Your Roof, you'll see you have two options. Option number one is to sketch my roof, which is where you measure it yourself. And option number two is to order a measurement report, where you're ordering through a third party and someone else is doing your report for you. So we're going to hit Sketch My Roof. And then you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner there, you have a little address search box field. And I'll click right there. And you'll see I have a list of addresses, and I've got some really cool addresses we're going to take a look at in some later sessions here. But what I want to start with now is the address 3828 Piermont Drive, and that is in New Mexico. But you can just type in 3828 Piermont Drive. It's a pretty famous house, and we'll click right there, and we'll be able to see that house from above. Now, you might not recognize this house from above, but when you see the front, if you're a fan of Breaking Bad, you will recognize this house. But you'll see this is a Google Earth satellite image that you'd get standardly. We have something brand new inside of iRoofing that on much more complex houses, which we'll look at a bit later on in other videos, you can see a lot of details there. So what you'll see is I have a button that says Clear Roof down on the bottom. And when I click that, the difference is night and day. If I click 0 credit, and it'll usually say 1 credit there, you'll see it's almost like I took a drone and flew it right over this house, which would very much concern Mr. White and his wife. But, it's almost like I took a drone, flew it right over the house, and I've got a nice, clean image right there. And I can see my slopes, and I can see everything like that. And I'm just going to adjust it so the driveway is at the bottom. So if I hit Adjust right here, I'm going to adjust it so the driveway is at the bottom there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Measure in the bottom right-hand corner. Now what that's going to do is that's going to scale the image. That's going to set a scale for the image, and that scale is going to allow us to properly measure this roof. So we've automatically set the scale, and where I like to start measuring, you'll see I have a giant crosshair on the screen. I always like to scope out the house I'm measuring first. So I check how many slopes I have. I can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 slopes. I'm not going to be doing that little flat roof in the back today because that's in a good condition. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get started on the main ridge line of the house. And I'm going to position my crosshair right on that main ridge line. And you'll see both in the bottom left and the bottom right corner of your screen, you'll see a little thing that looks like a dustpan. And if I hit the little dustpan, I'm going to get a little dot right there. That's going to be our starting dot. Then what I'll do is I'll move down the ridge line, and I will mark again, and I'll get another dot, and that will show me that the length of my ridge is about 52 feet, 52 feet and 1 inch. You can be, an inch or so off. It's okay. It's not going to mess anything up. The difference might be where you place your finger when you're putting things down. But then what I'll do is I will go towards the valley there. I'll mark there. I'm going to go up the valley, and you'll see these two ridges don't actually touch. So we don't want them to touch there. I'm just going like that. Like that. I'm just cutting around that slope. And the back slope's going to be a lot easier because it's got none of this cut out there. But I'm just cutting around the slope, and Boom, that's nice and marked out. So now I'm going to do the back slope, and what I've got to do is I've got to retrace that ridge line. So I'm going to mark the ridge line. I'm going to go there, there. I'm going to go towards the back. And I'm just going to cut straight through because that flat roof is not something that's going to concern me today because I just want to worry about the timberline shingles. And now we've got our two main slopes of the roof done. But what we've got is we've got three slopes on the front that we've got to draw out there, and you've got a ridge on those. And they are slightly different sizes, the two different dormers here. They're slightly different sizes, but what I'm doing is I'm just drawing them out like this. And I'll get them right like that. And I'm just drawing those little triangles or polygons right there. And what I'm doing is I'm just tracing going from where I go. So if I start on this red dot right here, I come down a little bit. I'll go up, and you'll see that red line is showing me I'm nice and lined up. And then I can do this little triangle right here. And we go like that. And then I'll get this guy right there like so. All right, so now we've got our house measured out. Now what I want to do is I like to clean up my drawings after I do it, so I'm going to use this Apple Pencil here, and I can just go down right into the corner and just adjust a little bit. But you'll see what I've got now is I've got the main picture of the house. I've got it nice, lined up. I've got all the slopes done and everything like that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit label parts in the bottom right-hand corner. And you'll see my lines get a little bit thicker to make it easier to label. And if you're using an iPad, in the upper right-hand corner, ridge right there is already selected. So I can click on the three ridges and they'll light up yellow. Then I have hips going down the right-hand side when I'm labeling parts. I have some hips in the front. I was thinking whether I had hips or not. I've got 4 hips hiding out in the front. Then I'm going to go to valley. On the back of those front pieces, I've got some valley right there. And let me get those. And then we go to rake. We got some rake on the sides there of that roof, so we'll get those rakes there. And then we've got mostly, I think everything else we have left is an eave. So I'm just going to mark those eaves. And we are done in labeling. So the last thing to do, and this is what's going to make you really recognize this house, is the pitch tool. So if I hit pitch, there's a button on the bottom left-hand side that says measure pitch. Middle bottom left-hand corner, it'll say measure pitch, and it's going to bring us out to a view of the house. So this is actually the house in question, and you'll see that there's a big sign saying, hey, warning, don't enter the property, it's private property, because a lot of people go out and take pictures in front of this house, and you see they blurred the garage and everything like that. But what we're going to do is we're going to try and get a picture as centered as we can of the house, and this is going to be the scenario we're going to get an idea on pitch. Now, the pitch measurement tool is to give you an idea of what's going on there. You should always use your own expertise to just see. Sometimes you've got a street that's slanted down, or you have a side view of a house that doesn't work too well. So given what you can see, I'm going to do it by hip/valley in the bottom left-hand corner. And I'm just going to mark over the garage real quick. And I'm just marking the bottom left-hand corner, the bottom right-hand corner, and the top of the garage. You can also do bottom right, bottom left, and top. And I can click to drawing, and it's asking me to tap the longest visible eave that was on there from Street View, which is right about there. And we can see it's the angle of the house. I would say this is probably closer to a 7 or so. It's just purely the angle we have in Street View is going there. So I can call that, and I can just take that little 7, actually probably closer to a 6. I can double click on that 6 right there, and then everything becomes a 6/12 pitch. So then what I can do is in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a button that says Report. This is how I get my report out. And I'll say, do I want to save? And I'll say Save. And it's going to ask me, it's going to say, well, who does this report belong to? And it belongs to...
I am the one who knocks.
Walter White, a.k.a. Heisenberg. So I can actually go ahead and I can hit this plus button right on the bottom. And it'll say, do you want to use the address? And I can say, yeah, you can use that. And then I will go ahead and I'll put in first name, Walter, last name, White. And what that's going to do is that is going to make a customer called Walter White right there. And I can go to the prettier address, and I can just go ahead and hit OK, and what you'll see is I actually get a very nice report that shows me exactly what's going on with this roof. So I can see it's about 30 squares. If we add a 15% waste factor, it's exactly 34 squares. So I like to work with nice round numbers. That'll make life real easy when we get to our estimate phase later. So you can see we're going to put a 15% waste factor on it at 34 squares, but we can see the linears on the left-hand side as well. And we can see that nice pretty picture of the roof right there. Very simple, very easy. And like I said, we can always go back and adjust it if we need to. And what we can do now is, now that we've got that measurement, what I want to do is I want to make a simulator photo so you can kind of see what the house is going to look like with those timberline shingles that we want to put on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the back button in the bottom left-hand corner a few times until we get back out to the main screen. And then there's a little button on the bottom that says Customer Database. I'm going to start with this guy right here, which gives us a blank slate. And you'll see what we've got inside of Walter White. We've got that roof measurement. That's got us exactly, with 15%, 34 squares. And what we'll do is we'll click on where it says Chosen Products right here, and we can hit the plus button, and that's going to allow us to see the products that are available in his area. So if I go like this, I can click on my asphalt shingle, GAF. Let's go ahead and let's click on Timberline HD. And if I'm just showing them a couple colors, I like, my favorite Timberline color is Weathered Wood. So I can click on Weathered Wood. I can assign that to Mr. Walter White. And then we've got that assigned in, and you'll see, if I click back one more, I've got that Weathered Wood assigned in. But now what I want to do is I want to show Walter and Skylar what that is going to look like on their house. So if I click to where it says Simulator Photos, and I hit this plus button, what I want to do is I actually want to have a good picture of the front of the house. So what you can do, I'll show you what I do sometimes, is I actually just take a picture from Street View. So you see, this is a picture from Street View. This is what we were looking at when we were measuring the pitch earlier. It's a little bit obstructed. It's a little bit weird. So what I like to do is, if I can, if I'm not going to go to the site, if I'm going to go to the site, I'll just hold up my iPad, boom, take a picture right on the site. But if I'm not going to the site, I can go to realty websites, and I can actually get a picture of the front of the house that I can use. So what I'm going to do is, I actually happen to pull this. This is a famous house, so I pulled it right from Google Images. I can hit Load from Album, and I've got my house right there. So I've got my house right there, and that's a picture of the house. It's not going to be perfectly cropped every time, but the idea is to give them an idea of what the material is going to look like on their roof. So what I can do is, on the left-hand side, you'll see a button 3 down that says Add, and that's going to allow me, and I am using my pencil here. It gives me a little bit more precision. You can use, if you're on an Android, you can use any of the Samsung styluses, or honestly, you get a little bit more precision even if you go with one of those styluses you can get at the gas station, which is kind of a really cool cool trick there. You can actually use a stylus and get a lot more precision. And what I've done is I've just marked those 4 points, and I've gotten a piece. So I'm going to hit Add again, and I'm going to do the same thing on the left-hand side. So I just go down here to where those points exist, and you'll see that crosshair is showing you kind of a zoomed-in view right there. And I'm just going exactly where those points are. Whoop. Perfect. And then what I've got is I've got a really nice idea. Now you'll see this is sandstone beige, but what you'll see I've got in that corner, I can move that a little bit. I can make it a little bit straighter, and I've got it right there. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to use my Timberline HD Weathered Wood. So if I hit the product in the upper left-hand corner, click on Asphalt Shingle, we'll go to my GAF, we'll go to Timberline HD, and where is my Weathered Wood? Weathered Wood is right there, and you'll see Weathered Wood pops up into the top. I can click on the 2 slopes I want, and I can go Weathered Wood. Now that doesn't look very realistic because it's not the right size for the shingle. They're a little bit too big. So I can use this little zoom tool on the right-hand side, and I can zoom out. Now, how do you know how big is too big? You'll see right next to where it says zoom, there's a little clear circle with an orange circle next to it, and what that does is that lets you see the old shingle that's there. And we can say, okay, if I'm sliding this slider on the right, okay, that shingle's a little bit too big. So I can click back to my zoom, and I can get it to the point where that shingle makes sense. So just a little bit smaller is where that shingle starts to make sense. And you'll see very little difference between those two. Now the next thing we're going to do is we just got to pitch it So we're looking at a pitch of 6, which is about a 20 degree, 24 degree. That looks pretty accurate there. And the last thing we can do is we can just tilt some images real quick. Like this, that one's pretty dead on the garage, but the main roof might need to be tilted a little bit. And I can get a good idea. Now, if I have a more challenging picture, I can use rotate. I can change my sun, my exposure, my perspective. If I'm not looking dead on and I'm looking from the side, I can actually change my perspective there. But then once I have that, there's a little button in the bottom left-hand corner that says share. And what that does is it now shares it to Walter White's profile. So what you'll see is we now have all 3 things we need in order to make an estimate for Mr. White. We have our measurement, we have a simulator, and then we also have our chosen product, which is our Timberline HD weathered wood. We are ready to estimate. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do this estimate today in a price per square estimate, just to give you an idea of what's going on. So I can click where it says estimate right up here in the upper left-hand corner. I can hit that big plus button right in the middle, and there's a little button in the middle, it's a pretty big button, that says generate new price per square estimate. So I click on generate new price per square estimate, and I choose my price per square, and you see perfectly, because I got a 15% waste factor, I've got 34 squares. Makes the math super simple. So what we're going to do is, out in New Mexico, Timberline, let's say about $500 a square, just to make the numbers easy. So we can hit price per square right there. We can type in 500, and I can either do that with my keyboard. I have a physical keyboard attached to my iPad, or the on-screen keyboard will pop up as well. And you'll see I've got a price of $17,000 at $500 a square, so I can hit done in the bottom right-hand corner. And what this is going to do is this is going to bring me to the way I actually make the estimate. And this has got all kinds of different information here. So I've got the property info, I've got my client info of Walter White, and I can put in his phone number, 455-677-8899. And I can put in his email, the one who knocks at gmail.com, because he obviously uses Gmail. And I've got my billing info, insurance info. If it happens to be an insurance job and not a retail job, what you can do is you can actually start with your insurance info. So you can go, we will say that this was financed by the Colombians. And we got our claim number, 123456. And claim department phone number, we can leave that blank. We can put in the adjuster info if we want to. Maybe it's actually not by the Colombians, it's by Los Pollos Hermanos. And we've got our friend, Mr. Gus Fring. So our adjuster named Gus Fring. No spoilers, but he's not alive anymore. So we can put in the adjuster phone number and the adjuster email. And then we've got our estimate info to give us when it is valid until. And what you'll see is useful is it's already gone ahead and put in our material, our GIF Timberline HD weathered wood. If I wanted to add more information to that material, I can hit asphalt shingle, GIF, I can go down to Timberline HD, and I can go to weathered wood. Let me go to weathered wood here. And then what I can do is I can actually add in my underlayment. So I'm going to use my fire deck protection. I'm going to go ahead and I'll go to my eave. I can use my starter strip for my weathered wood, and I can also use my ice and water if I wanted to. I can click on hip, and I can add my hip and ridge shingles. I can go to valley, add my valley protection. I can go to ridge, I can add my ridge protection. So I can put in all of this information. The more information I give, sometimes you have an information paralysis with customers, so it really depends on the customer how much information you want to give them as far as what's in the actual estimate. If you're doing it in an insurance job, obviously you have to put every single part, but we can just go ahead and put that in. I can hit add selected right on the bottom. And what I've got is it's actually gone ahead and it's calculated my coverage. It's telling me I'm just going to go with the shingle. You'll see it says I've got my area plus a 15% waste factor, gives me 34 squares. The shingles cover 0.33 squares per bundle, so I need exact numbers are interesting, 103 bundles due to the fact that we had a nice even square number. And I can scroll down and I can see my entire materials list right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit that X in the upper right hand corner, and I can go down to simulator photos, and I can add that picture I made a bit earlier. Then I can click down, my price per square already includes my profit, but if I change my payment structure, I can go ahead and I can put 2 payments. And I've got my first payment and I've got my after working. And then my favorite part is actually adding in your terms and conditions. Now, what I recommend is when you're doing your terms and conditions, you take them from your existing contract. But what you want to do is you want to have a good criminal lawyer. Maybe not a lawyer that's a criminal, but you want to have a good criminal lawyer take a look at your terms and conditions here. There's a recommendation I have. Let's just say it's Saul Goodman. But have a good lawyer take a look at what's going on there, and it's all good, man. And then once you've got that in there, what we can do is you'll hit down in the bottom left where it says submit an estimate, quote request, invoice, work, or purchase order. And the goal is I can click on estimate, good, and then sum, and you can make a good, better, best estimate if you wanted to. But for right now, we're going to stick to simple. And what I've got is I've got two different estimates. I've got an estimate that I can view on the web. So I can send this in an email to a customer and they can see all of the information that's going into their estimate. So you see if I go here, I've got the roof proposal, I've got Walter White, I've got Gus Fring is my insurance adjuster, and I can scroll down and you'll see I have nice pictures of everything that's going on. I've got my full roof report if I want to. You can limit it down, and I even have that simulator photo we did earlier of the house, and you'll see my logos in the upper left-hand corner to make it look nice and professional as well. But then I scroll down, I'll see my terms and conditions, and then the customer can actually get it right from here. But this is not a legal document. The customer can't actually sign this because you're sending it to them over email. But we have another document, which if I go to the condensed PDF estimate, I can hit view on web and print, and what that's going to do is that's going to give me a proposal like this. And I can scroll down, and the nice thing is this is a much shorter, and we like to say printer friendly because there's not all that color proposal. And you've got it right there, and you'll see you've got a signature field right on the bottom. And then the really awesome thing is you can take this and you can drop this back into iRoofing by hitting this little box in the upper right-hand corner. You drop it back into iRoofing. I got to go to more because I have so many things installed on this iPad, but I'll go copy to iRoofing. And I can copy it back to my contract database. And as the last step, what's very cool that I can do is I'm going to go back to the main screen of iRoofing. And when I'm back to the main screen here, there's a button right in the middle that says sign a contract, and I've got Walter White's roof proposal. So I can take that Walter White's roof proposal, I can hit sign in the bottom right-hand corner, and it's going to actually give me the proposal here. This is the shorter one that you can sign, and I've got my terms and conditions there, checked by that good lawyer. And right where it says signature, so right where it says here, I can go ahead and my representative that did it, I'll just say it's me, so I can sign right there. And we can put in a date if we wanted to. So we'll go right there. We can put in today's date automatically, and we can make that a little bit smaller if we wanted to. And then we've got a signature field right there. And I can sign it. Walter White, hit that little guy right there, and we're good. And then what I can do is I can actually go ahead and I can save that directly back to Walter White right there. So I can save that back to Walter White, and then the great thing is, right inside of my customer, in our customer database, I now have everything I could potentially need to actually make this work for my customer. So if I click on Walter White, I click right there. What you'll see is I've got my estimate right here. I've got my measurement. I've got my simulator photo. And then I've even got my document right there, nice and signed. So the cool thing is we've gone from not knowing anything about the Whites to actually measuring their house, making a simulator photo, and creating an estimate. Now, I want to go and take a look at some other houses with you in the future, but for right now, I need to figure out why I have this plastic bag and it's not empty and filled with something blue. So I'm going to go chase up Mr. White. I look forward to seeing you in another video here. My name's Richard from iRoofing, and have a great day. Bye!